King Solomon never chased motivation because he understood something most people spend their entire lives missing. Motivation is not wealth, it is permission to feel productive while going nowhere. And you are about to discover the 5-step Proverbs system that makes every modern self-help book obsolete. At the end of this teaching, a prayer for the wisdom to replace your addiction to motivation awaits. And the American self-help industry is worth $13 billion. It sells the same 2 steps on infinite repeat. Tony Robbins packages it as state management. Andrew Huberman packages it as dopamine protocols. And others package it as morning routines or habit trackers. Different branding, identical incompleteness. People buy the books, they attend the seminars. They still wake up financially stuck and emotionally exhausted. And the cycle never breaks. You read a new book, you feel a temporary surge. 2 weeks later, the surge fades and the bank account remains empty. Motivation is a chemical loan. It must be repaid with exhaustion. And most people chase motivational highs to escape the guilt of inaction. Solomon built mechanical architecture that never required motivation. Solomon understood what Andrew Huberman would later call dopamine baseline regulation. But Solomon engineered the complete 5-step system, not just the opening steps. This is not a mindset hack. This is 3,000-year-old systems engineering. The original code did not rely on adrenaline. It relied on architecture. This wisdom has traveled 3,000 years to reach you today. You hold the complete blueprint in your hands right now. Walk into almost any self-help conversation and you will hear the same loop. Change your mindset, build your habits, transform your life. Tony Robbins says it, Andrew Huberman says it, and James Clear says it. But that loop is a distortion of everything Solomon actually encoded. The modern self-help industry teaches that mindset and habits equal a complete transformation system. And they call it the formula for success. It is not a formula, it is a fraction. They are giving you 2/5 of an equation and promising you the whole result. Here is why the straw man fails mechanically. 2 steps out of 5 is an engine without a transmission. It burns fuel, it makes noise, it goes nowhere. You generate dopamine through motivation, but you have no allocation structure to deploy that energy into wealth-building assets. Dopamine without deployment architecture is addiction. It is not success. It is a very expensive dependency. They mistake the consumption of advice for the execution of strategy. Reading a book about investing does not allocate capital. Listening to a podcast about discipline does not engineer a system. The brain cannot tell the difference between planning and doing. The dopamine hit arrives either way. Solomon understood this trap perfectly. Ask yourself this: if mindset and habits were enough, why are the people buying the most self-help books still in debt? The answer is brutal. They have engine power but no steering wheel. They can generate the feeling of progress without ever actually moving forward. They read another chapter. They highlight another quote. The brain registers this as productivity. The bank account registers this as stagnation. Solomon watched this clearly. He saw men who planned endlessly but never deployed capital. He called them slack, not unmotivated. He did not diagnose their lack of energy. He diagnosed their lack of architecture. They had the drive. They lacked the structure. The modern self-help industry has weaponized this exact gap. They sell you the drive. They never sell you the structure. If they sell you the structure, you stop needing their daily motivation. You become self-sustaining. A self-sustaining customer is a terrible business model for a seminar company. Here is the hidden cost of the half system. Modern gurus teach step 1 and step 2. They teach perception and habits. But they skip steps 3 through 5. They skip allocation, protection, and legacy. Why do they skip it? Because steps 1 and 2 are consumable products. You can sell a book about mindset. You can sell a weekend ticket about habits. Steps 3 through 5 require actual financial architecture. You cannot package capital allocation into a feel-good seminar. The self-help industry thrives on repeat customers. If a system actually worked completely, you would only need to buy it once. You would deploy the 5 steps and walk away. But a system that only gives you 2 steps guarantees you will fail. When you fail, you assume you need more motivation, so you buy the next book, and you attend the next seminar. The cycle of dependency is the product. The opportunity cost is devastating. Decades of reading without deploying. Generational wealth never built. And people spend 30 years optimizing their morning routine but never optimize their balance sheet. They wake up at 5 in the morning. They take cold showers. They meditate. They journal. And they track their sleep cycles. They measure their heart rate variability. They optimize every biological metric except the one that actually builds wealth. They never optimize their capital deployment. And they remain completely broke. The generational cost is even worse. Children inherit mindset quotes instead of asset architecture. A father spends his life attending seminars, and he leaves his children a library of self-help books and zero financial infrastructure. He thought he was building a legacy. He was only building a mood. His children will have to start from zero. And just as he did, the cycle of financial amnesia continues. This is not self-improvement. This is expensive procrastination disguised as productivity. You are not building wealth, and you are building a tolerance for your own failure. The modern guru does not want you to escape this loop. Your stagnation is their revenue. And now here is something extraordinary. Solomon did not write a motivation book. He wrote an operational manual. 5 steps, each one mechanical, each one independent of your emotional state. And consider what that means in practical terms. You do not need to feel inspired to execute this system. You only need to understand the architecture. Modern gurus tell you that you must feel something before you do something. And Solomon tells you that the doing itself generates the capacity to keep doing. The system runs on its own momentum once it is built. Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, "For as he thinketh in his heart, and so is he." Solomon engineered perception 3,000 years before modern psychology existed. This is not a command to think positive thoughts. This is internal narrative governance. The Hebrew concept of the heart here is not just emotion, and it is the seat of intellect and will. Solomon is teaching that your dominant internal narrative dictates your external capacity to build. If your internal architecture is broken, and your external wealth will mirror that brokenness. A man who believes wealth is evil will subconsciously sabotage his own portfolio. A man who believes he is a steward will build aggressively. This was not philosophy, this was cognitive architecture. The Hebrew word Solomon uses for wisdom throughout Proverbs is tushia. It does not mean knowledge or insight, it means strategic ability that produces results. And the kind of wisdom that builds things. Solomon is not describing understanding, he is describing operational capacity. Tushia is not sitting on a mountain contemplating life. It is standing in the marketplace deploying capital with precision. When Solomon says get wisdom, he is not telling you to read more books. He is telling you to acquire the mechanical ability to execute. Knowledge without execution is just memory. Tushia is the bridge between knowing and building. Step 2 is diligence engineering. Proverbs 10 verse 4 says, "He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand. But the hand of the diligent maketh rich." Solomon is not talking about working longer hours. He is talking about the mechanical structure of your effort. A slack hand is an undisciplined system, and it relies on mood. A diligent hand is a systematized process. It relies on protocol. Diligence here is not human effort. It is engineered consistency. Step 3 is capital allocation. And Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." Notice the word plans, not hopes, not dreams. Plans. Solomon is describing the deployment of capital according to a predetermined ratio. Unplanned money evaporates. Planned money multiplies. This is the step modern gurus completely ignore. They tell you to work hard and save money. They never tell you exactly where to put the money so it works for you. Haste leads to poverty because unstructured money flows toward liabilities. Plans lead to profit because structured money flows toward assets. Step 4 is risk protection. Proverbs 22 verse 3 says, "A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it." Solomon is describing a risk management protocol. The prudent man does not just take risks. And he structures his finances so that danger cannot reach his core capital. He hides his foundation. Step 5 is legacy transfer. Proverbs 13 verse 22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just." Solomon is looking 3 generations ahead. He is not building for himself. He is building an asset architecture that will outlast his lifespan. This is the ultimate test of the system. Does it survive your death? The Hebrew word for diligent in Proverbs 10 verse 4 is charutz. It literally means sharp, like a chisel, like a cutting tool. Solomon is not describing enthusiasm or motivation. He is describing mechanical precision that cuts through resistance regardless of how you feel. Charut's effort is not emotional. It is structural. It operates on schedule, not on inspiration. When you engineer charutz into your daily execution, you become immune to the motivational roller coaster. You do the work because the system demands it, and not because your dopamine baseline is high. This principle did not stay buried in ancient texts. It resurfaced through modern authorities who each discovered one pillar independently and called it a complete system. And they took one slice of Solomon's architecture and built an empire on it, but they never delivered the whole building. And Tony Robbins built $1 billion empire teaching state management. Change your physiology, change your state, change your life. He teaches that your emotional state dictates your outcomes. And if you can master your state, you can master your destiny. This is powerful, it works, but it is incomplete. This is Solomon's step 1, perception reset, repackaged for seminar stages. And Robbins discovered that internal narrative governance drives external outcomes. He just calls it state instead of the heart. The problem is that Robbins stops at the state. He gives you the engine, and he never gives you the transmission. You leave the seminar on a motivational high. You have an amazing state, but you have no capital allocation protocol. 2 weeks later, the state fades. And the protocol was never built. You are back where you started, but you are poorer by the cost of the ticket. Robbins teaches perception perfectly. He just never teaches deployment. And he leaves you dependent on his events to regenerate the state you lost. Andrew Huberman, Stanford neuroscientist, built his platform on dopamine baseline protocols. Manage your dopamine. And manage your motivation. He teaches that dopamine is the universal currency of motivation. If you protect your baseline, you can pursue goals consistently. This is brilliant neuroscience. And it is also ancient history. This is Solomon's step 2, diligence engineering, viewed through a microscope. Huberman proves mechanically what Solomon observed behaviorally, consistent mechanical effort. And not emotional spikes produces compound results. Huberman tells you to avoid cheap dopamine so you can pursue long-term goals. Solomon told you to be charutz, sharp and mechanical. And so your wealth compounds, they are saying the exact same thing. Huberman uses neurotransmitters, Solomon uses chisels, but both agree that systematic effort beats emotional effort. And Huberman gets closer to the system than Robbins. He gives you the mechanical engine, but he still stops before capital allocation. He optimizes your brain to work, but gives you no architecture for the wealth that work produces. And you become a highly optimized employee with no portfolio. James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, teaching that systems beat goals. Small actions compound into massive results over time. And he teaches that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This is the edge of Solomon's step 2, bleeding into step 3. Clear got closer than most. He recognized that habits must be mechanical, not emotional. He recognized that systems drive outcomes. But even he stops at the habit layer. He never crosses into capital allocation. And he teaches you how to build the habit of working out or writing. He never teaches you how to build the habit of allocating capital or protecting risk. Clear gives you the daily routine. And Solomon gives you the generational architecture. A morning routine will not save you from bad capital allocation. Robbins' state management, Huberman's dopamine protocols. And Clear's atomic habits are each one pillar of Solomon's 5-pillar architecture, renamed and sold separately. They discovered the engine. They never discovered the transmission. Same foundation, different era, incomplete copy. The ancient code that built empires is now in your hands. If this teaching is making sense to you, if something is shifting right now, then tap the like button and drop the name of the last self-help book you read in the comments. I want to see how many half-systems we have all been consuming. Be honest, we have all bought the books, and we have all felt the temporary high. It is time to admit the high did not build the wealth. The system does. And here is the complete 5-step Proverbs system. Modern gurus gave you steps 1 and 2. Here are all 5. Each one is non-negotiable. Each one has a verse and a mechanical action. Write this down. And you will need to pause and review this section multiple times to deploy it correctly. Step 1 is perception reset based on Proverbs 23 verse 7. Audit your internal financial narrative for 7 days. And write down every belief you repeat to yourself about money. If the belief is passive, delete it. Solomon says your heart determines your architecture. Guard it like a vault. Your external wealth will never exceed your internal narrative. 2 is diligence engineering based on Proverbs 10 verse 4. Create a non-negotiable daily 2-hour work block dedicated solely to wealth-building activities. No motivation required. And mechanical execution. The Hebrew word charutz means sharp like a chisel. Cut through resistance. Do not wait to feel inspired. Execution generates its own momentum. Just start cutting. Step 3 is capital allocation based on Proverbs 21 verse 5. Assign every dollar before it arrives. Use a deployment ratio. If you have no ratio, use 33-33-33, 1/3 to living. And 1/3 to liquidity, 1/3 to growth. Unallocated capital evaporates. Solomon says the plans of the diligent lead to profit. Plans means ratios, not hopes. Haste leaves you poor, and ratios make you rich. Step 4 is risk protection based on Proverbs 22 verse 3. No co-signing, no unsecured debt. Build a liquidity wall before pursuing yield. A prudent man sees danger and hides. And hiding means structuring your finances so that one loss cannot collapse the whole architecture. You insulate your core capital from catastrophic risk. Yield means nothing if one lawsuit takes everything. Step 5 is legacy transfer based on Proverbs 13 verse 22. Transfer asset architecture, not cash piles. If your children inherit money without systems, they will consume it. If they inherit systems, then they will multiply it. Solomon says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That requires building something that outlasts your lifespan. Teach the system to your heirs. And do not just hand them the product. If you execute steps 1 and 2 perfectly, but skip steps 3 through 5, you have a running engine with no transmission. You burn fuel, you make noise, and you go nowhere. You become the most optimized, highly motivated, broke person in your zip code. The system only works when all 5 steps operate together. Architecture over adrenaline, deployment over dopamine. But here is the deeper truth. Motivation addiction is not a discipline problem. It is a faith problem. When you chase the next motivational high, you declare that God's architecture is insufficient. So you will manufacture your own energy through dopamine protocols, instead of trusting a system that works whether you feel inspired or not. You substitute chemical adrenaline for spiritual obedience. And fear dressed as self-improvement is one of the most expensive spiritual conditions a person can carry. You keep reading because you are afraid to build. Reading feels safe. Building feels risky. And Solomon says the prudent man sees danger and takes refuge. Your refuge is the system, not the next book. If this teaching has equipped you with something you can deploy this week, and subscribe to this channel. More of this ancient wisdom is waiting here, decoded and applied to the world you actually live in. And close your eyes if you can, or align your thoughts with mine right now. Father, we come before you as builders, not consumers. We confess that we have chased motivation instead of wisdom. And we have bought what gurus sold us and ignored what you encoded for us. Forgive us for trusting half systems when you gave us the complete architecture. Forgive us for seeking chemical adrenaline over your timeless truth. And grant us the tushia of Solomon, the strategic ability that produces results. Teach us to deploy all 5 steps, not just the 2 that feel comfortable. Give us the charuts to cut through our own resistance. And break every chain of dopamine addiction and every pattern of expensive procrastination. We surrender our wallets, our plans, and our future earnings to your lordship. Make us faithful stewards who leave architecture for our children's children. And may every enterprise we build bring honor to you and provision to those in need. In the name of Jesus, amen. And go build with wisdom, not motivation. Motivation is a vapor. Architecture is a foundation. The system is ancient, the architecture is sound, and it works whether you feel inspired or not. And the cycle of dependency ends today. You are not a slave to the next seminar. You are not a consumer of half systems. You are free.